In today's episode of the Platform Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest with me here today. I'm with Sara Pion, and she's the senior marketing manager at a company called Alyce. And if you're interested into ABM, if you're interested into bots, if you're interested into interactive experiences, then I think Sara definitely is the person for you. She was over at Drift and then headed into Alyce. And today she's going to be sharing with us her perspective on growth in that space. And we're going to be learning a little bit about her journey. So Sara, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
Awesome. Maybe give us that 360 overview. What is Alyce all about?
Yeah, so Alyce is a smart gifting platform. So you kind of know the word smart when it comes to like home goods, like smart light bulbs, smart applications. But the reason why we call Alyce a smart gifting platform is because it's not just a fulfillment and warehousing platform. It's not just a sending platform. It is like the first ever recipient-centric gifting platform. And so what that means is we care about our customers' customers. We want them to have a delightful experience when they are receiving a gift from one of our customers. And so that comes in the form of a marketplace with over 35,000 vendors so that anyone can get the gift that they want. There's the power of choice. So you can be sent a gift and choose to accept, exchange, or donate the dollar value of that gift. And it's a fully digital experience. So your gifting doesn't start and stop. It is a continuation of your marketing and sales initiatives and is a part of the customer journey that seamlessly flows from one step to the next, while also making sure that it has an e-commerce like checkout experience so that you're not asking for addresses before someone gets value from you. They get to see the value, they get to choose their value, and then they check out and then are redirected to their next phase of their customer journey. So that's kind of how Alyce positions itself against the rest of the direct mail and gifting world.
I love what you're saying on the page, which is that sort of you're not focusing on the 9 to 5, but the 5 to 9, identify what they like and then give something that makes sense in that context. Maybe tell me a little bit about sort of the types of companies that are getting started with Alyce and what is sort of their main use cases.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, we are a B2B SaaS company, and a lot of the times B2B SaaS sells to B2B SaaS, but that can be other MarTech vendors. It can be in cybersecurity space. It can even be in the healthcare space. We have, because of the ability to accept, exchange, or donate the dollar value of a gift, there's an additional amount of compliance where gifting couldn't have been part of the marketing strategy before, but now it can, because someone isn't actually accepting a gift. They're being given money to donate to a cause, but there is no like exchange of goods or like a bribery sort of clause in that exchange. And so the industries kind of span still in the general B2B space, and usually are used for sales prospecting, but also marketing engagement. So marketing gifting on behalf of their sales counterparts, or marketing including gifting as an offer for joining a webinar, attending a webinar, registering for an event, attending that event, customer milestones, customer appreciation, and every step of the sales process as well. Opening that door, getting a meeting, following up from that meeting, expanding the buying committee, accelerating that sales cycle to try and revamp any deals that may have gone a little cold, and then a congratulatory gift at the end of the sales cycle as well. So it's really one of those pieces of technology that can be used to create moments of delight at every single pivotal moment in a customer journey where they're expecting something from your business and you want to deliver on that expectation.
That makes it very, very clear. What I'm curious is, who would typically reach out within those companies, right? Is that like, you mentioned marketing there, you mentioned sales, or is that a customer experience manager? Is that actually marketing itself who is saying we need Alyce? Like, where is the drive or the pull typically coming from?
Totally. So door opener use cases, that initial like sales prospecting use cases, is one of the most common use cases that a lot of companies know about today. And so that's sort of where the inbound interest comes to start. Is I'm an ABM marketer, I'm a field marketer, I want to enable my sales team to send gifts, but I want to have a little bit more control on the back end of what they can send, who they can send it to, their allocated budget. And so because of that use case, generally marketing, field marketing, or ABM demand gen is reaching out to Alyce to have a conversation. At larger organizations, if there is, a global SDR team and a global sales enablement team, that champion could come from sales enablement, or it could also come from marketing operations or IT, because they're usually the people who are the decision makers at larger enterprises, who are the make or break kind of people when it comes to the sales process. So we usually focus more on the enablement of the sales reps, but then we'll talk about benefits and concepts and why this way of gifting is more important to the sales engagement manager, to the marketing operations manager, to the director of field marketing or account-based marketing.
I see. Super interesting. Okay, so we understand who is using Alyce and what they're using it for. What we're now curious is to know, like, how do they get to know about Alyce? Like, what is the journey of somebody typically? I mean, there's many different journeys, obviously, but what would be sort of a typical journey of somebody getting started with Alyce? Like, or in other words, what would be the typical client acquisition channels?
Yeah, so for a while, Alyce was a very focused outbound organization. We went to a lot of trade shows. We have a whole SDR and BDR team, and we used our own product to kind of demo our product on the first kind of initial outreach. And so we called that program Alyce for Alyce, or A for A. And so we would get hyper personal with the gift messages that we were sending, and we would meld that 9 to 5 with the 5 to 9 to kind of show what optimal BDR outreach could look like and how you can position a gift as a value add and not a bribe. As we've started to kind of grow the team, grow, goals, we've understood that we have set our foundation for outbound, and now it's time for us to set our foundation for inbound. And so that doesn't start with, doing all of the best practices that some of these demand gen thought leaders talk about, because first we have to set our foundation. So that includes, making sure that we have content on our website that helps educate our users. It includes making sure that when we are running paid, we are making sure that the paid collateral that people are seeing matches the experience that they have when they come onto the website as well, and creating contextualized experiences. And so we're taking what little content we have right now, because we're not a HubSpot, we're not a G2, we don't have thousands and thousands of pieces of content, and we're repurposing that for different stages of the customer journey, having those people come to the website in a contextual manner and understanding a little bit more about us, having larger offers. So when this goes live, we'll have just done our annual Universe conference. So that's YOU Universe. And this is our second time doing it. It's purely brand building. It's really conceptual for the marketer to understand why the personal approach to marketing is the way that you should be doing marketing. And that doesn't include, a new tech stack or a new team. It just needs a mindset shift a little bit. And so generally how people will hear about us, to answer your question, is through that Universe conference, through our paid and organic social channels, and through our A for A, Alyce for Alyce gifting motion, powered by our SDRs. So those are sort of the 3 channels that we're really trying to double down on right now and get really honed in on, so that we can then start to, be a little bit more creative with the way that people hear and learn about us and learn from us.
You mentioned that the role of inbound is changing, and you guys are building out that program. Maybe give us a brief insight. Typically, marketers are pretty, let's say, strict or critical with their own websites, right? How do you think about the current website in terms of what do you see as the major strength versus where do you see the biggest room for improvement?
Yeah, I think our website works right now as a way to give people a baseline understanding of how Alyce is a different gifting platform than, a warehousing and fulfillment center. It does a great job of helping people understand, like, okay, this is what Alyce stands for. Because every marketing team ever is always redoing their website all the time and never stops, one thing that we started to introduce to our website that's 100% free is A/B testing copy and design on some of our highest traffic pages. Because we can't redesign our website in its entirety all the time, multiple times a year, one way that we're seeing just a greater lift from our existing traffic and with our new positioning and the way that we want our new website to look is by running A/B tests and eventually multivariate tests to kind of help people and help prime the market to understand what we want our new take on our product and our positioning and our stake in the ground to be. And so that's something that I think a lot of marketers don't use as an opportunity of, even if you have been a mostly outbound focused organization, but you have a website, people are coming to it, and you can use that as a testing ground to help power what you want your marketing to look like in the next 3, 6, 12 months. And so it's 100% free if you use Google Optimize. You see a lift from your traffic without having to do a lot more, and you get the insights that'll help make sure that when you do relaunch your homepage, relaunch your entire website, it's based on the feedback that you're getting directly from your site visitors.
It's quite interesting, actually. It was a theme on the show, sort of, how do you actually translate those, for example, A/B testing findings into actual changes? Like, how do you typically decide what to actually change? When you deep dive into the website data, there might be session recordings, there might be heat maps, there might be A/B testing results. How do you get sort of into what actually needs to change on the website?
Yeah, I think that conversation and that decision shouldn't happen in a vacuum. It shouldn't just be something that the marketing team decides to change. It should instead be something that you have conversations with other parts of the business. So where is the sales team struggling to vocalize and explain our positioning? Where does the product design team envision our product and the product story? And how can we incorporate that into, the product call-outs that we have on our homepage? And then finally, how does the CEO view our future state in a few years? And how can we hint to that in our existing web experiments? And I think the first place to start is just the headline of your website. Does it explain what you do? From there, it's the subheader and the main CTAs. I did a lot of multivariate testing and AI-powered multivariate testing at Drift because it was a very inbound-centric organization where we had the monthly active user base to change everything. With Alyce, we're seeing 95% statistical significance on headline changes on one page, because we are focusing so much traffic to that one page, and we made the concerted effort to have the headline and the subheader copy be different and a little bit more tactical. That's where we saw the lift. And then from there, we can focus on the form experience, and we can focus on the CTA copy. But even things like A/B testing CTA copy, I've seen a 300% lift or a 39% lift on a page just by changing learn more to register now, sign up to register now. So I would say you don't have to redesign your entire page to start doing A/B testing. Try out a positioning statement that you heard work on a gong call as your headline. See how it goes. Run it for a month, and then change your base site if you have statistical significance, or try again if you don't. The great / maybe not so great part of A/B testing is that you're never done. You can just keep testing.
Very cool. So you mentioned, I wanted to maybe deep dive into this for a second. You mentioned, obviously, there's a lot of sort of pointed changes, the headline, the subheadline. We had a couple of lead gen marketers on the podcast that were speaking about sort of the measurement of the full journey in itself, right? Because obviously there is a buyer's journey specifically for more complex products that is happening. How do you think about measuring that journey? Is that something that you guys are tackling? How do you think about that?
I think it depends on your, maturity as an organization, especially from an inbound perspective. If you are an inbound heavy organization and you have attribution mapping and customer journey mapping and a visible and tools that can help you understand exactly what moments in the customer journey are pivotal and they need to experience X, Y, and Z moments, you can then, manipulate your website to make sure that those X, Y, and Z moments are bubbled up to the right people at the right time. I think if you're just starting out, look initially for like an increase in conversion rate and quality of conversions, because it doesn't necessarily matter if you have a bunch more people converting on your site if they're not within your ICP. And so that's like the first stage that I would go towards is like, make sure that you have a specific form that's associated with your experiment, so that when you, and like you have your Google Analytics goal set up so that you can kind of match your website data to your source of truth in your CRM to say, okay, here are the people who converted on the base site. Here are the people who converted in the experiment. Maybe the experiment converted fewer people at higher quality. Does that mean that this was a success? That's something to determine internally. And that's also something where you can then communicate to your sales team, like, hey, you may see a decrease in leads, but based off of our experimentation, we saw that these are actually higher quality leads that have a higher chance of moving through the rest of the journey. And so I would say it's like a crawl, walk, run situation as anything in marketing, especially when you're new. But first make sure that, you have your measurement set up in the way that you want to make sure it's set up. And then make sure that you're consistently looking at the data and it's giving you an answer, whether that's bad or good.
Very good. That definitely puts a light on sort of, that process that is involved also with, gradually building up that inbound motion. I want to sort of switch gears as we're slowly coming to an end of the interview. I want to talk a little bit about yourself. So I'm curious, you had great experiences at great companies, obviously. So you had a lot of like peers that you were learning with and experience on the job in very high scale pages. I'm curious though, how do you keep on educating yourself further today? Like, what's the type of content that you consume? Where do you sort of look at in order to keep on progressing in terms of your skill set?
Yeah, I used to do a lot of like by myself learning of people would suggest books and podcasts to listen to and read. And so I would read and listen to those resources. One thing that I found was really difficult was for the stage that I was at in my career, I couldn't act upon the things that I was learning from those books because it was about larger positioning and I was an individual contributor on a team that wasn't impacting positioning. It could help power some of the ideas that I brought to the table as like a larger team, but it didn't necessarily help me in my job perform better. And so because of that, I've started to rely a little bit more heavily on community and smaller communities that are a little bit more tight-knit and a little bit more focused. And so that's been a really awesome sounding board from a peer-to-peer like standpoint of like, this is the problem that we have right now. I know it's not unique to us. How have you gone about solving it in your own organizations? And then also having conversations with mentors and my manager to be like, am I thinking about this in the right way? How do you think we should think about this thing? And then of course, like continuing to read and listen to podcasts, but having that not be my end all be all, because it's great to have in the back of my mind, but not necessarily actionable in my day-to-day.
Very cool. I want to wrap it up with some rapid fire questions. You ready for those?
Ready.
What's the last book that you read?
It was called Not a Happy Family. It was a thriller book.
What's the one single thing your company's focused on the most at the moment?
Building our inbound foundation.
If there would be no boundaries in tech, what's the one thing you would fix for your role today?
I think more creativity with more trust.
What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
Our inbound funnel, for sure.
And if today would be your first day with Alyce, what's the one advice you would give yourself?
Have more conversations with customers early on.
Very cool, Sarah. Really appreciate that you took the time with us today to be a guest on Platform Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed today about Alyce, what's the one thing that they should remember?
Being personal is better than having the most technology and the most resources. And it doesn't take technology and resources to be a personal marketer. And it'll make your customers more happy with you.
Very cool. So I really appreciate you being a guest on Platform Presents.
Thank you for having me.